All right. So here we are, the end of another season of Shameless. The past 2 or 3 seasons have been far more serious than they have been usually. I think probably the only real comedic element of the season was the whole Svetlana mini arc, which was her trying to keep her visa, which that whole concept didn't fully make sense to me. I feel like it wasn't better explained because she was already married to Mickey. And Mickey is an American citizen. Now, because he's in jail, does that invalidate her being able to have her visa or what? That I feel like that was a plot hole. And it felt like it was kind of a way to just kind of keep Svetlana a part of the main cast. Because it was like she was already married. She was already married and she has a kid with Mickey. So she's married to him. She has a kid with him. He's an American citizen and he's in jail. Their child is an American citizen. So therefore she should be able to stay. So that was kind of a loose end there. However, that made it definitely made for some comedic elements with her and Kevin and V becoming part of a triad, which was interesting. I'm always interested in seeing the way alternative relationships, how they're implemented in the media. Most times they're brought in like a sitcom element, and you have the main straight couple, and then you have the swinger couple who are considered to be weird. The swinging couple is always considered to be like completely off kilter, or they're super into BDSM and they're just waiting for somebody to say the word, and then all of a sudden the clothes are off and everything, and it's like, no, that's not really how that works. Whereas this was a bit more realistic. She'd already done things with them anyway, so it wasn't as weird. Because in previous seasons, when V had the babies and she temporarily separated from Kevin because she thought Kev cared more about the kids than her, Svetlana came in kind of as a nanny and started doing wifely duties to him, which lucky dude, you know. Svetlana knows exactly what she's doing. And apparently she does it very well. And then V ended up having her turn after she found out about it. She was like, all right, well, I'm going to even this up with Kev. So you go ahead and go and do this with me. And so it was, so they've Kev and V have always had kind of this odd relationship. It's an interesting relationship, especially when we thought V couldn't have kids, and we had Kev having sex with her mom because they can't afford to do the artificial insemination. The mom fell in love with his dick, which was really funny. Like, she fell in love with having sex with him. Not Kev himself. Kev's a great guy, and she recognized that, but she just wanted the sex more. And that was an interesting element. But yeah, back to the more serious stuff. Another interesting kind of long-winded thing that happened this season was, and this was kind of 2 seasons coming around, was the whole arc with Carl. And from the beginning, Carl was always kind of poised to be a juvenile delinquent. The guy was always trying to be in trouble, and he was super into guns, he was super into violence, and he was super into the criminal element. And it was one of those things where either he would grow up to become a sociopath, or he was faking the entire thing and didn't realize how hardcore you had to be. It was always going to be one of those two elements. So when he went to jail, we found out that he ended up fitting in really well over there. And he joined the black guys. And so, you know, hanging out with all those guys, I guess he comes out, he thinks he thinks he's one of them. And so he's like super hood. And he comes out with this boy, and this was one of the interesting things about his relationship with this guy was, it was almost like of Mice and Men, kind of if you've ever read the John Steinbeck story of Mice and Men, where you had the big guy who was kind of slow, and he wanted to do right, but he didn't really know how to. And then you had the smart one, who was the smart one, smart younger one, who was Carl, and it also kind of says something about our justice system too, where this kid basically went to jail for what was it? Was it like self defense or something like that? Like his his dad had been beating him or something like that, and then he finally had enough and killed his dad in a fit of rage. And so he was in jail. He was in juvie for murder. And that was basically from the time he was like 8 or something. He was like 7 or 8 or something. So his entire childhood was spent in juvie. And his entire adolescence was spent in juvie, basically. So he kind of didn't really know how to relate to the real world. All he had was this short time with his dad, and then juvie for the rest. He spent more time in juvie than anywhere else. And so when this guy gets out, he pretty much has no idea how to relate. And Carl's showing him how to do things, and how to relate to the world almost through his family. And you could see that deep down the kid was a good kid. He just didn't know how to do things. And that kind of says something, and that I think that's a reflection of our justice, our judicial system, because in a lot of cases you do have a lot of people who end up spending in our system anyway, the American system. You have these people who end up spending more time in than out, and when they're out, they have no idea how to relate, so they just get themselves thrown back in again. And you see this reflected in media a lot. I mean, so that's more or less what happens. Like all he wants in the world is his bike, and he lives in freaking South Side Chicago, South East Side Chicago, which is where all the white people live, and but it doesn't matter. But that's neither here nor there. But he lives in South Side Chicago, which is kind of a ghetto, and well, anywhere in Chicago. I used to have I had my bike stolen from downtown Chicago. It was locked up and it got stolen. I was gone for like 5 minutes and it was gone. So this guy, he leaves his bike for a second locked up, and it's gone when he comes back. And that's the only thing he's ever wanted in the world. It's the only thing that gave him peace, was having a freaking bike. It's kind of bogus that he ended up, they kind of stole it and they kind of didn't, because Carl did pay the kid that they got it from. They find the kid who stole it and he just rushes in. He's just had enough and goes in, and he can't let it go for whatever reason. His bike is just giving him peace. And all he knows is what's happened in juvie. So he goes in, he kills the kid, and he goes back to jail. And what was interesting was that there was a couple ways this could have gone, which was Carl could have probably just, I don't know, like learned from it, adapted and everything. But this was finally the thing that scared him straight, which was interesting. This was the event that scared him straight. This was when it really hit home, seeing this kid murdered for a bike, for nothing but taking a bike, which even in Carl's eyes was like, that's kind of outrageous. That's kind of a reality when you live a life like that, and so yeah, it was interesting. You go from this totally hood, white boy who's just like, yeah, what's up, my end, da 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 da, and people looking at him like, really? What? Did you really just say that? Really? And then this whole thing with the girlfriend. The girlfriend, she actually, what was funny was that he was trying to put up this front. He was trying to put up this front in the beginning of trying to be all hood and street and bling bling and all that stuff, and she wasn't having that. It was funny that what she actually got attracted. The reason she got attracted to him was because of how he treated the other kid, which was like he treated him like a brother. And I don't mean like so my brother da, da, da. No, like he treated him like they were actually blood brothers. Um, and then uh, uh, even though he kept hitting on her and trying to spend money on her, she wasn't going for that. And it was just him how he treated this kid that really attracted her to him. And then when he completely cut out the Hood Act, that's when she really fell for him. So that was pretty interesting. The front got dropped and all that stuff, and she was just like, "No, this is the guy I actually like." We always kind of knew that Carl had a good heart in him because Fiona raised these kids to have good hearts. It's just that they're misguided. A lot of they were just mainly misguided. And then of course you have. So Carl's finally of all the people, Carl's the one with his head on straight, which is crazy. After all this, Carl is the one with his head on straight, which is crazy. It's just kind of funny. With Ian too. Ian's had this kind of rough roller coaster, where he had the whole bipolar thing happen, and he was kind of wacky. And I think the whole thing with the bipolar thing was just you could kind of see where that was coming from because of some of the things that he did, and it eventually just got worse. Like when he just ran off and joined the military, and he jumped into this. He started banging his boss while he was at work and all this stuff, and banging his bully and all this chaotic stuff that he did, and then finally he ran off and just joined the military, and then he got sent home because he stole a helicopter and some other stuff, and it was just like, where is this coming from? And then finally we find out, oh, he's bipolar, yeah, and I guess part of it, seeing what happened, it was, oh, excuse me. And I think that was part, he didn't really want to believe it. And we're noticing with these kids, they don't want to become like their parents, but they only see the outside of what it's like to be their parents. So they don't, they don't see what they're doing is being like their parents. When other people can see that, they only know what their parents did to them. And I'll get into that in just a moment. But so Ian was in denial about the whole bipolar thing, and I've seen bipolar. I've seen bipolar when people admit that they have it, and I mean I know a couple of people that have just done outlandish things because of they're bipolar, and they knew they had bipolar. Like this wasn't even when they were in denial. Like Ian was in full denial. No, I don't have bipolar. What are you talking about? Why are you calling me crazy? Are you're saying I'm bipolar? That means I'm crazy. No, I'm not. That is not me. And he would just do crazier things because he was in denial. So I mean, of course you have that. And finally he went and he got the help he needed. Then he came out and he was still kind of in denial about the medication, but it seems like he's finally getting there. He's finally getting there. And this episode we definitely saw it. He's coming up over that ridge with this new firefighter boyfriend. And he finally seems to have found a decent person, which is good. Him and Carl have both seemed to have found very decent people who can accept who they are. And I think that was part of the problem with Gus, which was Fiona's first husband. Gus was a very decent dude. He just didn't know her very well. I think that was part of their problem. He just didn't really know her, and he didn't understand her very well. And his life was way too perfect for him to ever be able to understand her. Which is Yeah. So he was, yeah, he never would have ever really understood her. He was a very good guy, just never would have understood her, which is probably why she ended up cheating on him with her boss and sponsor. I think he was her sponsor too. Um, let's see. Who's next? Debbie. Oh my God, Debbie. Oh, this was Debbie's just had a this whole recent past couple seasons thing with her and this kid. At first, last season we just thought it was she just wanted to have sex and that was it. She just, she wanted to be cool. She wanted to have sex, and then it turned into I want to be a mom, and it was like, whoa, wait a second. But on the other hand, if you really look at the early seasons, you could kind of see that already starting. Like that was something that was already hinted at before, because she raised Liam a lot. Like she helped to raise Liam when he was a baby, so she probably had all these, and she loved taking care of Liam. Like she was always the one who was like, no, no, I'll take Liam. I got him. I'll take him to daycare, and then she would watch over him in daycare and all this stuff. So she had this idealized version of what it was like to be a mom, and she didn't realize all the other grown-up things that you have to do. There's not just sitting there and watching the baby and playing with the baby and then changing his diapers. There's also the I have to provide for the baby, and I have to provide food, and I have to provide shelter, and somehow I have to make myself better so that my baby can be better. And she had never really understood that, and she never really seen that part of Fiona's life, which was why Fiona kept telling her, no, you can't have this kid, this is going to be tough. And that's I mean, I always kind of knew that was something like that was going to happen. I always knew that Debbie was going to try and have a kid, but it only makes sense because teenagers are extremely impulsive, and she found this hot guy that she liked who seemed to accept her, and then after a couple minutes, she decided she was in love with him, and then she basically raped him. Was it? No, no, no. Not him. Sorry. She raped the other guy. She tried to have sex with this guy who was older than her. And she would keep trying to have relationships with these guys that were way too old. And they're just like, no, you don't understand. I'm an adult. You're 14. I can't even look at you. Like, that's like, I will go to jail for that. No, I won't tell. It doesn't matter. Somebody else will tell, or it will come out. So she like raped the one guy, and then she tried to have sex with this other. She had sex with this other kid, and lied to him and told him she was on the pill just so she could have the baby with him, which was bogus. That was just wrong. That was just terrible. That was probably the worst thing Debbie has ever done. Was no. Both of her interactions with these guys have been the worst thing she's ever done. The rape and her telling this dude that she was on the pill, and it's like, when you're older, I don't know, if you're not her, you're looking at it, you're like, the kid wants to leave. He wants no part of this. He wants no part of raising this kid. Insert medium here. Yeah, so it's like, oh man. Yeah, that was there's no other thing but to say but that. And then, she's so dedicated to this whole mom thing, and she just doesn't see that it was a terrible decision. Just a terrible, terrible decision. And then she gets mad at Fiona and wants to. I don't know. I'm going through. I'm going through something like that in my own life. So I can feel the parallel with Fiona there. It's funny because the past couple seasons I've been feeling parallels with a couple of the characters. Last season, I had a parallel with Gus, and this year, um, yeah, last season, especially the one scene. There was one scene I really liked that I really felt a parallel to. And I'll post a clip of that. And there was, and then just, you know, I felt the parallel with Fiona and trying to explaining to Debbie, like, this is a terrible, terrible idea that you're having a kid at 15. I feel that parallel. I do. I really do. Fortunately, I don't have to deal with it as much as Fiona does. So, and last of all, I think I'm gonna completely skip Fiona because I just feel bad for Fiona. She's at this point, I just kind of feel bad for her. Last season, she kind of brought it upon herself with cheating, but this season it was just like I kind of feel bad for her. Especially this season finale, it was just like, wow, poor Fiona. She just can't get a break with these guys that she's dating. Like, she had the one guy, and then she's completely screwed that up. The one decent guy, and then she just screwed that up terribly. Actually, no, she had two decent guys. And she completely screwed both of them up. So yeah, it was, yeah. This time I kind of feel bad for her with you thought Sean was going to be pretty good, and he seemed to understand her and all this stuff, and then we find out he's using on the side. It's like, oh man, really, dude? She asked you to do one thing. Yeah, she didn't fully understand what it means to be a junkie, but come on, man. All right, skipping Fiona. Last but certainly not least, I've been talking about this all episode. Lip. My boy Lip. Lip is one of my favorite characters. He's been one of my favorite characters since the first season because he always seemed to have his head on straight. He was chaotic. He was fun. He was really smart. He always seemed to know what to do. He was really mature, and and then it turns out that he finally he was gonna make it. They finally beaten it into his head. You gotta go to college so you can get out of here. We don't want to be here. You have the choice of not being here. Go to college and not be here anymore. And Lip finally listened to him and went to college, and he was doing well. And then this relationship with his professor, and we've always known that Lip had these problems with women. He's kind of a womanizer. Lip has a way with the ladies, and he somehow he has no trouble getting laid. And he fell for this professor who was really smart, and I think she was probably the first person who was like as smart as he was. Like, Mandy was in love with him. I mean, he always had Mandy. Mandy was very street smart, and she was deeply in love with him. We see that she still is. We saw her earlier in a couple episodes ago. She still is deeply in love with him. But she was like, no, you can't stay here. I can't drag you down here with me. You have to go and do something for yourself. You have to go out there and be somebody. And so, he was on his way there. He got into this relationship with his professor, interestingly enough, who was in another alternative relationship. Hers was interesting. They had an open relationship. Her and her husband had an open relationship. She seemed to do most of the swinging, um, or was it polyamorous? It might have been polyamorous. Um, but she was the one who mostly did it, and her husband was okay with it, and he fell head over heels for it, but he didn't know how to handle it, and then she just basically cut him out of her life because she got in trouble over it, and he couldn't handle it, and then we find out that his go-to for trouble is to the bottle. He goes straight to the bottle, and he was starting to become another Frank, and nobody was mentioning it because he was staying away from all of his old buddies and or everybody from his old life. And then it was great. The one thing I definitely appreciate about this episode was uh, he's deep in the bottle, and what was it? He goes home. Oh yeah, that's right. It was first brought up because of what's her name's grandmother, Chucky's grandma, Frank's girlfriend, his old flame, who's like fixing his chakras and trying to help him because he was impotent, and he couldn't get off without thinking of this professor, and he was just angry all the time and all that stuff, and she unblocked his chakras, and 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 the first thing she said was, "You look just like Frank," and it was just like, oh shoot. Like, that was the first moment. It was just like, holy crap, he's Frank. He is becoming Frank. And then, once again, he finally sees some of his old buddies, he starts seeing Kev and Debbie, and even Frank called it out on him. It was just like, it was, once he went back to his old buddies, because he couldn't go back to college, they're all like, you are looking and sounding exactly like Frank. You need to do something. You need to get back out there and be somebody. But yeah, so that and then that ending. They didn't even show him walking in. The professor drives off. Oh man. So his professor left it open-ended, left it to him. Hopefully Lip had called the professor to say, yes, I am going to do this. And hopefully he finds the strength to walk into that building. All we saw was him staring at that building. And it's like, Lip, you need to go in. We don't need another Frank. You don't want another Frank. So, that's something that's definitely gonna they definitely need to do. All right, well, I think I've yammered on long enough. This is going on to like 30 minutes. So, how do you guys feel about this season, Shameless? Are you looking forward to next season? What do you think is going to happen next season? Is Carl going to end up becoming a junior policeman? Good work on Ian becoming fighting back against the firing. He was legit. He was 100% right. It was either lie and get the job and hopefully nobody finds out, or not lie and most likely not get the job, but the possibility was very slim that he might get it. So yeah, I mean, he was 100% right there. That would have been discrimination if they fired him for a mental health issue, especially if it was something that he didn't actually do on while he was on the job. All right, well, yeah. And what do you guys think? Do you think Lip's going to go into the building? Are we going to see a much better Lip? It would probably make for an uninteresting show if he didn't go, or if he did go in. But in terms of his character, I would like to see him go in, because once again, Lip is one of my favorite characters. Do you think Fiona's going to find a new guy? Um, how do you think, is Debbie ever going to let Fiona help her out with the baby? I mean, she seemed like she was heading in the right direction today with the nurse. The nurse is like, hey, like, look, are you getting help at home? And, and Debbie easily sidestepped over that. And I think the nurse noticed it. Like, she was like, the nurse was like, hey, so, who do you live with? Is she helping out? And Debbie's just like, well, she didn't want me to have her, as opposed to, no, she's not helping me. And I think the nurse noticed that and was just like, oh, so she's not helping, is she? And Debbie just didn't answer. So, I good work on the nurse trying to get Debbie to get some help, because I know Fiona's doing the best she can. She in terms of this kid, like, yeah, she didn't want her to have the kid, but what are you gonna do? And she I feel like she only gave her she initially meant to put her foot down on the ultimatum, but family is family, and you couldn't really turn your back on them. So yeah. Alrighty, well, once again, this video has gone on long enough. I am going to see you guys around next time. I will try to get to some of these other reactions later on. I do need to do a Grand Canyon video at some point, but anytime. Anyway, I will see you guys around later.